The moment the glass of water slipped from her fingers and shattered across the polished marble floor, no one in the executive wing moved fast enough, except the one man no one ever noticed. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not really. Just a shadow in a gray uniform. A janitor pushing a cart that squeaked louder than his tired shoes. But in that single, fragile second, when the most powerful woman in the building appeared to collapse into silence, it was him, Arv Malik, who stepped forward. And everything changed after that. If you believe that kindness and second chances can come from the most unexpected places, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Heartfelt Stories. Because sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest impact. The headquarters of Orexin Global was a monument to power, glass towers reflecting the sharp daylight like blades. Inside, everything moved with mechanical precision. Executives rushed. Assistants whispered. Decisions worth millions were made in minutes. But beneath that polished world existed another, one of unnoticed footsteps, quiet labor, and invisible lives. Arv Malik belonged to that second world. He arrived every morning before sunrise, long before the executives and board members filled the corridors with urgency. His hands, rough from years of labor, worked carefully across every surface. He cleaned not just floors, but fragments of other people's lives, coffee stains from late-night meetings, discarded notes from broken strategies, and sometimes tears that no one admitted to shedding. He was a single father, raising his 8-year-old daughter Meher after losing his wife years ago. Life had not been kind, but Arv carried his responsibilities with quiet dignity. Every rupee he earned went toward Meher's education, her meals, her dreams. His own dreams had been folded away long ago, like old clothes no longer needed. But what no one knew, not even those who walked past him every day, was that Arv had once been a man of ideas. Before life forced him into survival mode, he had studied business strategy and operations. He had ambition once. But ambition doesn't always survive tragedy. Upstairs on the top floor sat the woman who owned everything Arv cleaned. CEO Alina Varma, brilliant, sharp, and feared in equal measure. She had built Orexin Global into a corporate giant. But success had come at a cost. Her trust in people had eroded over time, replaced by skepticism and control. Recently, the company had been struggling. Profits were slipping, internal divisions were growing, and something deeper, something invisible, was breaking from within. Alina suspected betrayal, incompetence, or both, but she needed proof. That morning, she made a decision that would test more than just her employees. It would test her own understanding of humanity. She pretended to collapse. Not dramatically, not loudly, just enough to appear like exhaustion had finally taken over. She allowed her body to slump into the executive lounge chair, eyes closed, breath slow, appearing unconscious. It was a calculated move. She wanted to see who would act, and how. Minutes passed. Executives walked by, hesitating at the door, unsure, unwilling to get involved. Some assumed she was resting. Others feared overstepping. No one dared interrupt the CEO, even in apparent distress. Then came the soft squeak of a janitor's cart. Arv had entered quietly, as he always did, but something felt wrong. The stillness in the room wasn't normal. The glass of water lay shattered near the chair, and the CEO motionless. Without hesitation, Arv rushed forward. He didn't think about hierarchy, consequences, or whether he was allowed to be there. He only saw a human being who might need help. He carefully checked her breathing, his hands steady despite the tension. He grabbed a nearby cloth, cleaned the water to prevent slipping, and adjusted her position so she wouldn't choke if she regained consciousness. His movements were precise, thoughtful, not rushed, not careless. Then he did something unexpected. Instead of panicking or calling loudly for attention, Arv paused. He looked around the room, at the scattered documents, the open laptop, the scribbled notes on a whiteboard. His eyes lingered on a chart, declining numbers, inconsistent projections. He recognized the problem instantly. Even while believing the CEO was unconscious, Arv spoke softly, not to her, but to himself, almost as if thinking aloud. He analyzed the situation with clarity that came from experience buried deep within him. He pointed out inefficiencies in supply chains, flaws in cost allocation, and a major oversight in employee retention strategy that was quietly draining the company's core strength. His voice was calm, but filled with insight. He didn't realize that Alina, though still pretending to be unconscious, was listening to every word. He moved to the whiteboard, hesitated for a moment, then picked up a marker. Carefully, respectfully, he began correcting the figures. He reorganized the strategy, simplifying what had been unnecessarily complex. He wrote solutions that were practical, not theoretical, solutions that addressed the human side of the business, not just numbers. Minutes turned into nearly an hour. Ara finished, stepped back, and looked at the board. Then he quietly placed a marker down, adjusted the chair one last time, and returned his cart. Before leaving, he glanced at the CEO with a faint expression of concern, as if hoping she would be okay. And then he walked away. Alina opened her eyes slowly. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar, not control, not power, but humility. The man she had never noticed had just solved a problem her entire executive team had failed to fix. That afternoon, Ara was called to the top floor. He entered nervously, unsure what he'd done wrong. People like him weren't summoned by CEOs unless there was trouble. His heart pounded as he stood in the same room, now immaculate again, facing the woman who had watched him without his knowledge. Alina studied him carefully. She saw the exhaustion in his posture, the quiet strength in his eyes, and something else, integrity. Without revealing her test immediately, she asked him about his life. Arv answered simply, without exaggeration. A widowed father, a janitor, a man trying to survive. But when she asked about the whiteboard, everything changed. Arv froze. For a moment, fear crossed his face. He thought he had overstepped, that his actions might cost him his job, the only stability he had for his daughter. But instead of anger, Alina felt respect. She revealed the truth, the test, the observation. Every word he had spoken. Arv was silent. Then came the moment that would redefine both their lives. Alina offered him a chance, not out of charity, but recognition. She didn't offer him sympathy. She offered him responsibility. At first, Arv hesitated. Life had taught him not to trust sudden opportunities. But something in her sincerity felt different. It wasn't pity, it was belief. Over the next few months, Arv transitioned from janitor to consultant. Not overnight, not easily. There were challenges, resistance from others, whispers in the corridors. People questioned his place, his qualifications, his worth. But results speak louder than status. The strategies he implemented began to show impact. Cost stabilized. Employee morale improved. Productivity increased. The company, once on the brink of quiet collapse, began to breathe again. And through it all, Arv never changed who he was. He remained humble, grounded, and deeply aware of where he came from. He still greeted the janitorial staff by name. He still stayed late, not out of obligation, but dedication. One day, months later, Alina stood by the same window where she had once pretended to fall. But this time, she wasn't testing anyone. She was reflecting. She had built an empire, but nearly lost it because she stopped seeing people. It took a man the world overlooked to remind her that value doesn't come from titles. It comes from character. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that greatness can come from the most unexpected places, take a moment to like, comment, and share. Your support helps stories like these reach more people who need to hear them. And before we close, here's a special request. Comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Sometimes, a single word can carry 1,000 emotions. On a bright, ordinary day that began like any other, a janitor walked into a room and unknowingly saved a company. But more than that, he restored something far more valuable, faith in humanity. And sometimes, that's the kind of success that truly matters.